So, if you've been on social media recently, you might have seen the new documentary about Diddy on Netflix. Everybody's going absolutely wild about it. And that's for good reason. I watched it the other day and I thought it was amazing. The production quality, 50 was a complete menace. They did the storytelling, the footage that they got, it was amazing. And I'm sure you've seen the title. And before I jump into everything, I just want to touch on this. I'm not a Diddy supporter. I don't think that what he did was right. I think he deserves to get, the right punishment for everything that he did do. However, as opposed to a lot of people that are just watching the documentary getting triggered and, getting all like angry at him and at the people that did that stuff, I was looking at that documentary and I was like, you know what? The guy is a fucking genius. The guy is a genius in terms of branding, in terms of marketing, positioning, manipulation, all of that. So I literally, as I was watching the documentary, I told myself, I have to make a video about this. How, and this is basically the title, how Diddy builds the biggest cult brands in the music industry. Okay, so for a second, I know you might be, I don't know where you stand with like the Diddy situation, but for example, I've seen a lot of people that are so triggered by this, they don't even want to listen to anything regarding the topic. But I'm a firm believer in, regardless of how bad the person is, there are still some lessons and patterns and things there that you can study and then apply, especially when we're talking about branding, marketing, right? So this is what the video is going to be about. It's probably, I don't know, this might either get like 5 views or it could potentially blow up and get like probably a lot of hates. But I got the outfit on, I got the glasses on because I had to for this occasion. So let's kind of jump in here because again, there are going to be a lot of patterns, a lot of lessons. I was watching the documentary and I was literally thinking to myself, sure, the allegations and what he did, the guy is batshit crazy. Obviously, he's cooked in the head. But regardless, again, incredible genius when it comes to marketing, when it comes to creating icons with artists. So, there are a lot of things to learn here. So, here's what you're basically gonna get from this video. We're gonna talk about how you can position yourself as the gateway in your industry. Okay, so regardless of the industry that you're in, so people believe their success depends on you. And again, we're going to take some things from the documentary, from Diddy's career, and apply them ethically when it comes to growing your brands. We're going to learn how to build an ecosystem, not just a business. So every touch point reinforces your power as a founder, as a creator, as a brand. We're going to take a look at how to manufacture aspiration so that people buy identity, not just products. How to create rituals and belonging so followers become believers who actually recruit for you, and how to attach yourself to every single win so your reputation compounds with every success story. Now, with this, we're also going to take a look at obviously the line between cold brands and actual like cold leader so you can build that loyalty without the manipulation. So let's dive in because this is probably going to be, to be honest, the most interesting video I've done in a long time. Now, I broke this up into a couple of different phases based on the timeline of both the documentary and Diddy's career. The very first phase, phase one, this is what I call the blueprint. So this is essentially the beginning. He went from being just an intern to a gatekeeper, right? So Diddy started as an intern at Uptown Records. It was a record label, and within just a couple of years, he was running A&R, discovering essentially and developing talent, so new artists. And he had one skill that mattered. He could just spot who was going to be a star before anyone else. But then he got fired from Uptown, right? And instead of begging for another job, he started Bad Boy Records in 93. And that decision for him changed completely everything. And to be honest, for the entire music industry. And again, as we go with this, keep in mind there are a lot of lessons that you can take from this. We're going to talk about the manipulation. We're going to talk about the dark stuff, the fucked up things that he did, which again, he deserves the punishment for. Regardless, there are lessons here. So he didn't just start a label with Bad Boy, okay? He positioned himself as the gateway to success in hip hop. And if you wanted to blow up basically in the 90s, you needed Diddy's cosign, his stamp, his machine. He wasn't just a producer or a label owner, he was the guy who could change your entire life. So he became the gatekeeper because he discovered Biggie, obviously, the biggest rapper of that era, along with Tupac. He launched multiple careers: Faith Evans, Mace, 112, Total, and every success reinforced the narrative, which is Diddy makes stars, right? So, again, I want to touch on this. The guy, I was watching the documentary, the guy is fantastic he's brilliant when it comes to building and controlling a certain narrative. This is what he did for himself, for his artists, and for basically everything that he did throughout his career. And he's amazing at controlling narratives. And so artists believe their entire future just completely depending on him, right? And what's in terms of like you taking this and applying it to your own brand, to your own company, whatever you're trying to create, whether you're growing a personal brand right now or an e-com brand or whatever, you got to ask yourself, what is the thing people believe they need you for? What gateway do you control? Because the creators with real power aren't just selling services, they're positioned as the bridge to something people desperately want. So ask yourself these questions. After all of these phases, we're going to have some questions like this that you can take and you can ask yourself right now so that you start to understand, okay, these patterns and all of these things that Diddy actually did, I can take and I can implement those into my own business and into my own brand. Phase two, this was about building the empire, right? So in the mid 90s, Diddy negotiated a 50-50 joint venture with Arista Records. And this was unheard of at the time. Nobody was doing that at all. But he got a major label distribution while keeping control of his artists and masters. So essentially, everyone else was signing away their power, but he kept his. He kept the artists, he kept the masters. And this was the bad boy model. So he owns the artists' contracts, he controlled their budgets, he controlled the promotion, he controlled the relationships, and artists needed him more than he needed any single artist. So again, we're talking about control. Yes, we're talking about manipulation. Yes, totally. We're talking about all of these dark things that he actually did. But again, the model, absolutely amazing when it comes to business, to be honest. And sometimes, a lot of the times, this is what a lot of people don't want to admit. A lot of the times, business is not pretty. A lot of the times, business entails that you have to be a fucking savage. But there's a caveat to this. And as always, everything is nuanced. It's not just black and white, right? So with this, you can build control, and we're going to talk about the ethical approach later in the video. You can build all of this, but you can do it in a way that serves people, not fucks them over, like the Diddy sort of model. But this was the ecosystem strategy that he built. Basically, he had all of these different brands and ventures and income streams and deals. So Sean John, for example, was a fashion company he started. He sold that for 70 plus million. Ciroc, obviously the partnership, 50-50 profit split. Revolt TV, so media network. He had obviously Bad Boy Entertainment with artists, publishing, touring, and restaurants, fragrance lines, reality TV. So the guy essentially didn't just limit himself at working with artists and promoting them and going on tour. No, he went into this whole set of business ventures and essentially this entire ecosystem. And again, he wasn't building just a business, he was building an entire empire, an ecosystem. And if you wanted to be in his world as an artist, a business partner, or a fan, you had to move through multiple touch points, and each touch point reinforced the others. This is very interesting. So I want to talk about the Ciroc case study for a bit because, again, I was watching the documentary and the guy mentioned, I forget his name, was someone in his circle. Like, he mentioned the Ciroc deal when basically the company approached him to promote and for him to sell, I think 1,000 or 10,000 bottles or something like that of Ciroc in a matter of 12 months. And I might get the numbers wrong, but that's not the point. And the guy is basically, the guy said, you know what? Okay, bet. Like, I'm gonna go ape shit with this. I'm gonna go crazy. And the way I was looking at that and I was like, God damn, this is brilliant. Because the way he integrated that into his lifestyle, and we're gonna cover this in the case study, and essentially went from just selling vodka to selling a lifestyle, absolutely beautiful in terms of marketing. So again, instead of just taking an endorsement check, he negotiated a 50-50 profit sharing deal, which for him obviously was amazing. So he became a partner, not just a spokesperson for the brand, not just an affiliate, whatever. He became an actual partner. And then he did something genius. He attached, as I mentioned earlier, Ciroc to the lifestyle he'd already built. So his parties, his image, his entire world. And he made Ciroc feel like the drink of success. So he didn't just sell vodka. No, he sold a membership into his world. So that was very, very good. Now, for the phase 3 in here, this is basically manufacturing aspiration, and we're going to get into it because again, as we go, as we advance through the phases, we will touch on the dark stuff as well. The thing is, everything about Diddy's image was engineered for aspiration. The shiny suits, the champagne, the mansions, the yachts, the models, everything. And the constant message was, we're winning. Cannot stop, won't stop, bad boy. He didn't just sell music, he sold a lifestyle. People actually want it. So again, you see, as I'm touching on this, is not just about selling the raw stuff. So not just about selling a couple of albums here and there and tours. It's about selling the lifestyle, manufacturing aspiration. And this is the aspiration formula he used. So constant luxury imagery, videos that looked like more like movie productions, lifestyle that felt just so out of reach. All of the parties that he was doing, all of the clubs, and everything was on camera. That's why the documentary is so good. And the whole message with this is if you're with us, you're winning too, right? So that's the aspiration formula. Now, every year, because obviously I want to touch on this. Pause, Again, this whole video is super interesting because it's so nuanced, and a lot of people I know, they're gonna be like, why do you talk about this? Like, this is like, but again, chill out, just grab a fucking drink and let's enjoy the lessons here. So every year, Diddy threw the white party, thing in the Hamptons, and the guest lists obviously mix like old money, elites, Hollywood's A-listers, and just hip hop royalty, whatever. Everyone were whites, and everyone, essentially wanted in because it was the hottest party to be in. And this wasn't just a party. It was a ritual, probably it was a ritual, okay? But it was a signal that Diddy was the bridge between worlds. So between where you are and where you want to be. Because rituals, what you have to understand, and this is amazing for branding again and marketing, rituals create belonging and exclusivity creates desire. So I know, you might look at this like white party stuff, like what is this weird thing? This is also weird. Instead of being triggered, this is my thesis. Instead of this is what 95% or 99% of people do. They look at a documentary like this, they're triggered by their own emotions. They're like, yeah, fuck this guy because he's a bad person. He is a bad person. That's obvious. But most people lose themselves in the emotional reaction and they just forget to take the lessons from there. There's a saying that goes, take the meat and leave the bones. You don't have to like Diddy. You don't have to like what he actually did to all these people for you to identify some key lessons in there that you can take for your own business. Again, I told you, I was watching that documentary and my mind goes crazy because I'm thinking, okay, if I, as a personal brand, especially on my Instagram, last year I started to get so many partnership deals and companies approach me, startups, especially in the AI space and content space. And I'm looking at this documentary and saying, what could I apply from this in my own situation? Obviously in an ethical way, but what can I apply on a business perspective to grow my revenue essentially and position my brand in a better way, in a more premium way, in a more luxury way. So again, there are lessons. Even though you might get triggered, there are lessons. And Diddy understood something that most artists will probably never understand, is that people don't just want music, they want identity. They want to feel like they're a part of something aspirational. So when you bought Bad Boy, you weren't just buying an album, you were buying into the lifestyle, the energy, the winning. That's what it was all about. It was about the winning. It was about the luxury life. It wasn't just about the album. I said it before. The product is always the vehicle for the identity that you're trying to sell. The product that you have, it could be a digital product, a course, it could be something with ecom, anything, a physical product. That should be the vehicle to get people into your world, to get people into your cult. That's how you build a cult brand. So ask yourself, what lifestyle are you selling? What aspiration? If you're just selling deliverables, you're a commodity, regardless of the industry. If you're just selling deliverables, you're a commodity. But if you're selling entry into a world that people actually want to be a part of, you're building a cult brand. And you can look again at the biggest artists. Diddy's an example. You can look at the biggest movie stars, at the biggest brands. You can look at Apple, Nike. We talked about these brands in the past on the channel, but it's the same pattern. Now, phase 4, this is the psychology of control. Again, we're diving into the manipulation and the dark stuff, but this is again the darker sort of like mechanics and the stuff that the documentary exposed. And we're gonna break down some mechanics from here. So we have mechanic number 1, love bombing and rewards. This is what, this is classic manipulation. And in terms of like Diddy, he did this like a lot, right? So he was legendary for generosity when you were in his good graces, basically giving, artists and people in his circle everything from money, access, opportunities, introductions. He made people feel special, chosen, right? Part of the inner circle. And this is classic cults psychology. Overwhelming positivity creates emotional debt, and people basically feel like they owe you. They don't want to lose that feeling. And again, all of these mechanics that I'm sharing with you, I'm not sitting here telling you that I condone this behavior in terms of building a brand, in terms of you love bombing people in your team and lying to them and manipulating. No, we're breaking down Diddy's mechanics, and then we're going to extract from this again lessons that you can apply. Mechanic number 2, dependency creation, right? So as a producer, label heads and manager, he controlled everything an artist needed. So everything from their contracts, their money, their promotion, their industry relationships. And the thing is, as an artist, if you left with nothing. And your future dependent on staying, depended on you being with Diddy. So he controlled everything from here. He controlled the money, he controlled the relationships, he controlled the narrative. Again, the guy was a fucking genius with that. And leaving meant losing everything you'd built. So this is dependency creation. Let's move on to number 3, the inner circle mythology. So there were always whispers about, what happened in the inner circle, the parties, the rituals, all of it, and the things you had to do to get close, to get in the inner circle. Now, whether true or not, these rumors created what? Created mystique. This is the whole point. Where we're talking about building your brand, you need to have some sort of mystique behind it. So the inner circle felt like a secret society, and getting in felt like an achievement. You can look at the white parties, everybody that was left out, they could have talked anything about the parties, but everybody who was left out felt some type of way. Like they felt triggered, they felt like they were missing out, because that's how you create, exclusivity. And being excluded, again, felt like a failure. Now, mechanic number 4, ubiquity and inevitability. So the guy was everywhere, right? Guest verses, remixes, award shows, magazine covers, TV appearances. You could just not escape Diddy, literally. So he felt inevitable, too big to fail, too connected, to cross, too connected to do something to. So when someone feels inevitable, people stop questioning them. And at one point, they just accept them. This is what happened with Diddy. The entire industry accepted him. Sure, they heard the rumors. They heard, Diddy's doing this, Diddy's doing that. He has the parties, he has the freak offs. But at one point, they just accepted that as the new normal. Sure, in the background, behind the scenes, people were talking, but again, he was literally everywhere. Now, this is the cult's architecture in here. So, just to do a recap, love bombing, right? So, creating emotional debt, dependency, basically making leaving feel impossible, inner circle mythology, so creating desire and fear, ubiquity, making you feel inevitable, rewards for loyalty, reinforcing the system, and consequences for disloyalty, so keeping people silent. This is the cold architecture that Diddy essentially applied to his brand, to his entire career. This is how he built his empire. Again, is it ethical? Is it moral? No. Will he get punished for this? Hope so. I don't know. The apparently he got like 50 months or something in jail. He might get more. We don't know. But essentially, all of this can be flipped into a positive, and I'm going to show you how. Because again, these mechanics were allegedly used for, control, coercion, and abuse. But the same tools, as I said, the same tools that build movements can be used to trap people. So it goes the other way as well. So these mechanics, the thing is, these mechanics work, right? They absolutely work. That's the uncomfortable truth, because everybody wants to be so moral and so ethical. But when it comes to business, I talked about it before. These gurus that you're watching online that sell you a course, that sell you a group program, that you don't even have fucking access to them, they use a lot of these manipulation tactics that we're talking about here. They're no different from Diddy to a degree, right? So business sometimes is like that. Business is super savage. Business, and I've seen a lot of people um, get triggered by this idea that people online sell offers and sell products. Well, they're entitled to. I'm selling an offer right now. If you want to work with me one-on-one, long-term mentorship, you got a link down below. I'm obviously making money from this. I'm not doing this completely for free, but there's a big but here. You need to do this ideally in an ethical way. So this doesn't mean, what people don't understand is that this idea of like you can make a lot of money without being bad. Making a lot of money does not specifically 100% entail you being this evil person and manipulating people left and right, Diddy style. Like, no, you can do this in an ethical way. And the question is whether you use all of these mechanics and all of these tactics to serve people or just purely exploit them. Because you can create belonging without creating dependency. You can build loyalty without creating fear. You can be aspirational as a brand, as a founder. You can be aspirational as a personal brand without being manipulative. And the psychology is neutral, but the intent is what matters. Keep this in mind. The psychology is always neutral, but the intent matters. This is why I said, like, a lot of people just get lost and so absorbed by their own emotions, by their own sort of thoughts when they watch a documentary like that, and they go, this guy is purely evil, and then they completely, as always, they miss the fucking lessons in there, because there are a lot of lessons that you can take. Now, phase number 5, building icons, right? When Diddy found Biggie, he didn't just sign him, he built him. He crafted his entire image. Diddy is a genius when it comes to that. He picked the beats, he directed the videos, he controlled, again, the entire narrative. So Biggie was undeniably talented, don't get me wrong. But Diddy built the machine around that talent that made him a legend. So this was Diddy's icon manufacturing process. Find raw talents with star potential. Identify the unique angle, what makes them different, what makes them stand out. Build the image and aesthetic around that angle. Then control the narrative. and the rollouts, create mythology through strategic scarcity and moments, create mystique, create this idea of exclusivity, create all of that. And then, last but not least, for Diddy, obviously attach yourself to every fucking success from the artist. So, this is the icon manufacturing process. Now, what made all of this work? Is because he understood that talent alone doesn't create icons. So talent alone, you got the most, and this applies into for every industry. You can be the most talented, let's say, videographer. If you don't create content, if you don't position yourself so that clients come to you, if you're just creating content in your, in your hometown for your mom and two friends, that like doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. If you're actually trying to grow that into a business, you need to position yourself. So this is all about positioning, because this is what Diddy understood. Talent alone doesn't create icons, but positioning does. Narrative does. And the machine around the artists is as important, sometimes if not more, as the actual artists. It's the same thing with brands. Same thing with creators, same thing with founders. It's the same thing. Sometimes, as take me for example, in terms of like my personal brand, my own talent and my skill set, which is huge, ranges from like branding. I worked with multiple companies before I had an agency. I built a SaaS business. I built an e-com business. Now I have this. I'm working with founders, people from all around the world. My skill set is so huge, from marketing, editing, graphic design, branding, selling, whatever, everything. It's so huge. But all of this wouldn't matter if I wouldn't know how to sell myself, if I wouldn't know how to position myself, if I wouldn't know how to create a narrative. And everything that you see, I talked about it before, and I'm going to do a video with this, but aesthetic wise, everything that you see is intentional. Everything that you see is crafted. This is why I personally like some of the stuff that Diddy did in terms of the artists. With Biggie, for example, Biggie was talented, but Diddy built literally the character. He built the icon, because Biggie was just an artist. He was a rapper, but he took that and he built Biggie into an icon. You can look at every single artist that he worked with. This is what he does. And it's the same principle here. Again, the machine around the artist, the machine around the brand, your content, your positioning, a lot of the times is even more important than your skills, more important than how talented you are, more important than who you actually are as a person. But again, it all starts with who you are. It all starts with who you are, but you need to understand positioning. Now, for Diddy, why did this work for 30 fucking years? Why did it work? It worked because of this idea of the ecosystem of silence, right? So the documentary exposes something important. It wasn't just Diddy, it was everybody else around it. Labels that looked away because he made the money, lawyers who just settled cases quietly, media that celebrated him because access meant stories, artists who stayed silent because speaking up meant career suicide, and industry that just benefited from his power. So this is why it worked. Now, why did people stay silent? Super simple. It's because fear of losing access and opportunity, the financial benefit from association, the belief that he was just way too powerful to take down, and the normalization of it. So again, if everyone accepts it, it must be okay. And last but not least, isolation. So victims just felt alone and isolated. Now, the lesson here isn't just about Diddy. It's about understanding how systems protect themselves and how to build systems that are transparent, ethical, and don't require silence to survive. Because I don't want you to sit here, watch this video and be like, yeah, now I gotta go and just be the Diddy of my industry and just build this. No, you can build systems that stand against the test of time. You can build brands that transcend your industry. You can do partnership deals with the biggest brands, the biggest companies, but you can do this in an ethical way. You don't have to go full Diddy mode, right? Now, what is the ethical application for this? Take away the dark parts. I know there are a lot of them, but what's left? Diddy understood something that most entrepreneurs never learn, which is that people don't buy products. They don't care about products. This is what he understood. And he made billions. So if we take a look at that, that's the confirmation. People buy identity. People buy aspiration. People buy belonging. They buy access to a world they want to be a part of. This is what he got. Now, the legitimate playbook for this is this. One, position yourself as a gateway, right? Not through manipulation, but through genuine transformation in your industry. Be the person who actually helps people get where they want to go. Let your results speak. So position yourself as the gatekeeper, but not through manipulation, not through the dark tactics, not obviously don't try to, don't scam people, don't do that. No. But do that through genuine transformation. The second thing, build an ecosystem. Again, we talked about it with Diddy. Build an ecosystem, not just the products, multiple touch points, multiple ways to engage with your world, each one reinforcing the others, and make your brands feel like a universe, not a one-off transaction. I've seen a lot of people, especially with content, they look at their brand like, yeah, this is just a one-off transaction. Maybe they don't look at the brand like that, but that's really what it is for them, because you might sell a course, whatever somebody buys, and then that's the end of it. That's the end of the journey. When in reality, if we're talking about occult brands and this idea of you becoming an icon in your industry, you need to build a movement. You need to build a universe. So build an ecosystem, not just a product. Let's move on. Number 3, sell aspiration and identity. So what does someone become when they work with you? What is the identity that they want to embody and that they will embody? What is the lifestyle similar to what Diddy did with Ciroc? We talked about it. He wasn't just selling, like, vodka became, that bottle of Ciroc became part of his entire universe, of his entire lifestyle. So he was promoting aspiration, identity, the party lifestyle, the champagne, the whatever. Ciroc was just, the vehicle for that. So what do they signal to the world, the people that join you? Make the transformation visible and desirable. Let's move on. Number 4, create belonging in ritual events, language. So I'm not saying throw white parties or black parties, whatever, now, no. But create, this idea of events and brand language. This could be inside references, ways for your people to identify each other. Make being in your worlds feel like a membership in something meaningful. Now, the last one is engineer inevitability. So this goes without saying, but you should want to show up everywhere, essentially. As a creator, as a brand, you got to be everywhere as much as you can. Be consistent, make people feel like you're the center of gravity in your space, and people will never forget about you as long as you keep doing that. A lot of people, I've seen them, they post fucking 2 3 videos on Instagram, one video on YouTube, and then they're like, I'm not getting results. Well, of course you don't get results, because you're not everywhere. People don't actually know about you. So it doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter how talented, it doesn't matter how skilled you are, because people don't know you. One, and two, you just haven't been consistent enough for long enough for everything to make sense, for everything to kind of, connect the dots for you. So look, you can use these same principles that we talked about in this video to build something that genuinely serves people, right? That empowers instead of exploiting, that creates belonging without creating dependency. Or you can obviously use them to trap, right? You can obviously use them to manipulate and control people. But again, the psychology doesn't care about your intent, but the outcome does. So eventually, obviously, the truth always comes out. It did with Diddy, and it's universal. So I'm going to leave you with this. Build something worth believing. Build it transparently, build it ethically, and you'll never need silence to protect it. If you actually take your time to build a brand that, goes beyond the digital product, that goes beyond the course, and if you actually are in it to transform people's lives for the better, to actually serve people, to become better yourself in the process. You're not going to need to use these manipulation tactics at all. I'm constantly talking about it. You don't need to convince people, to let me take my glasses off right now for the end of the video. You don't need to, convince people to buy like 24/7 from you. You can do this without worrying, you know, that, oh, people are never going to buy. You can do this without essentially trying to go full Diddy modes with content to constantly get people to, be afraid of losing your products, losing your offer, losing access or whatever. There is a way to do this ethically. So hopefully you got value from this video. If you did, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We're going to have a lot of videos just like this, and I'm going to see you in the next one.